That's what you got here on Birds 365. Fucking EAGLES Eagles. McMullen and McDonald doing it with Paul Domowitch. And since it's the month of June, he's gotten to full summer outwear. Like it, Domo. Looking good. Where are you going today? The beach or just to the store to show off? Where are you wearing that fancy shirt?
Just my regular ensemble, Jody.
Yeah, it's going to be 86 today. Damo's ready, baby. Yeah, gotta have it. Plus, he's been around Andy Reid too much, so you got.
You look like you could work for Andy Reid, correct?
Yeah.
All right, Damo. First day that the media gets in to see the Eagles, if you were heading over and you knew you had to come up with some kind of angle or story thereafter, knowing full well what it is or isn't day one of open practices for the media for the Eagles, what do you think you could find out?
Well, I probably wouldn't find out a whole lot new with this organization. But, I mean, the most intriguing aspect of this for me going into this offseason and this training camp is the defense. I mean, they've got two new coordinators on offense and defense, but nothing's going to change on offense with Brian Johnson. I mean, they're going to run essentially – they'll have some new tweaks and some things to surprise people. But his defense, everybody wants to see what's going to happen with Sean Desai. I don't think there'll be major changes. They're not going to suddenly become a Buddy Ryan blitzing team. But he's going to do some things that we haven't seen from Gannon. He's a respected coach. I'm looking forward to seeing how that defense performs. I mean, they managed to kind of stop the bleeding on free agents who left. Added some people who could help them. So, I went into the offseason thinking they were going to have to outscore everybody this year. I don't think that's going to be the case necessarily anymore. I think that defense is good enough to keep teams close to what they allowed last year.
There's a lot of projection though there, Damo. I mean, we're talking about 5 new starters. Replay, like, I'm very high on Jalen Carter. I made that pretty clear. But I mean, Javon Hargrave is a good, accomplished player. And our old buddy Jim Sports and startup costs. Nakobe Dean had 34 snaps. I think long term it's going to be fine. I don't know about short term. They got to replace over 2,000 snaps between TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. And then safeties, both safeties. Marcus Epps, he was the Iron Man. He was out there for every play, basically. And CJ Gardner-Johnson, we know, was a playmaker. And we know how fans like splash plays. I don't see a splashy guy who's going to lead the league in interceptions while missing 5 games. And then I bring up the last point, the expectations. And Jody and I talk about this all the time, and we probably talked about it with you. 70 sacks. And probably not going to happen again. Number 2 overall. Number 1 passing defense. And remember, that wasn't good enough. I think the expectations might even be a bigger concern than the changing talent when it comes to the starters on this defense. Any of that bother you?
Well, I mean, there's some concerns, obviously, with the new people. But, the people I like Nakobe Dean. I think he's going to have a big impact this year. Ultimately, I think it benefited him that he didn't play much as a rookie, because I think he's a guy who's probably going to have you could probably put him, come up with a snap number that's going to be a total for his career. And he saved a lot of them his rookie year by only getting, 15 snaps on defense. So
34.
Yeah.
Must be number.
So that extends into his second year. He's fresh like a rookie. I mean, his body's not banged up. And you're right about Carter. I mean, that's what I'm most intrigued about, is to see how Desai uses his front 4. He's not going to blitz, but what he's going to do differently from Gannon is move these people around in some unorthodox looks He's going to overload sides, something that we seldom saw from Gannon. We may see Carter or Jordan Davis out in a wide 9. I mean, he'll let you think you can run on what he shows you. He'll give you a light box and dare you to run on passing downs. So I'm going to be interested to see a lot of that. I like Terrell Edmonds, the safety they got from. I mean, he's durable. I don't think if he's missed one game his entire career, it's a lot.
Very durable. Yeah.
Yeah. Nicholas Morrow's coming off a career year. Can he match it? Did he play so well last year because the light finally went on, or did he play so well because everybody else in Chicago stunk? We'll find out. But I don't worry about this defense as much as I did 2 months ago.
Domo, this is day 3 of this week for us. We were off on Monday. So we did 2 hours Eagles Talk Tuesday, 2 hours yesterday. Our first hour here today, punching you up in our second. Jalen Hurts' name has not been mentioned once yet this week. There was a time during this offseason where the only thing we talked about was Jalen Hurts and the contract, and Jalen Hurts, and can they get it done? And what is Jalen? Oh, my God, he should have won the MVP over Patrick Mahomes. He's become an afterthought because of what he did last year and because they got the contract done. I guess everyone is just working from the assumption is downside is he's as good as he was last year. Upside is he's going to win the MVP. He's going to be better than Mahomes. We're not even going to have to debate it. This is just the way that he's been handled on our show the last couple of days. And the same thing on my WIP show. I haven't brought him up. I haven't heard anybody else on WIP bring him up. Are we forgetting that Jalen Hurts is still the key guy to this whole team? Is he not?
Absolutely. And I don't think anybody's forgetting it. It's just that, Jalen keeps a low profile. I mean, he's not going to any darkness retreats. He's not.
Good point.
You don't have to worry about him.
Oh, that's funny.
You don't have to worry about him saying anything strange about his offensive coordinator because he and his offensive coordinator are best friends. I don't think, I'm fairly confident last year wasn't a fluke. I think he's going to be better this year. I think he's going to be better. I look at what he did last year. I think we're going to see a little bit of a different Jalen this year. I don't think he'll run as much, or at least that's the hope, I think, by them because it's, they don't want him to turn into a Lamar Jackson who's missing the last 5 games of the season when they need him. At the same time, his running is obviously important to that offense, but he needs to improve in the red zone. I think they want to throw the ball more in the red zone this year. Last year his numbers were just okay in the red zone. They ran, I want to say, like 116 times in the red zone, 59 passes. So I think that's going to change a little bit, and his numbers are going to improve down there. So I think that's why nobody's talking about Jalen, because everybody's confident that we're going to see the same kind of level of excellence from him.
And by the way, this is the time of the year you jogged my memory, Jody, bringing up Jalen Hurts is now sort of a constant with this team. This was the exact time of the year where he had evidently the worst OTA practice in recorded history, and the report came out and so my point is don't get overly excited, good or bad, from a fan perspective. People are allowed to have bad practices, off days. A lot of times you're working on things. You're not trying to accomplish what people think they're trying to accomplish. I remember when Doug was here, you probably remember, Damo, they would put out the reminders of the 2020 practices to try to educate all the reporters that, hey, the defense is servicing the offense here and vice versa. Make sure you put that context in it. The Eagles are very cognizant of that stuff. They can't stand, for instance, when Elliott does training camp quarterback stats. You think they're too worried about that stuff? Just from an overall standpoint, like who cares?
Well, I mean, this organization has always had sensitive ears. They listen to everything, they hear everything, they're worried about everything that's said, and that emanates from Howie. I mean, because that's how he's.
Yeah.
I mean, Howie has been sensitive to what people have said since he got into the league. So that doesn't surprise me. I don't think it affects them. I mean, and these six, what do they got? 6 OTAs. I mean,
Six.
I don't know.
Six.
Are they even going to have 11 on 11s? I don't think they are they?
They're allowed to. We'll see.
I know. But,
yeah,
their approach here. Their approach is
they did have some last year, but I mean, it doesn't. The only thing I'd look at is 7-on-7s because basically, as you know, Damo, when you got the jersey on and what defensive linemen off, but they're just standing there. All right, what is the point of this? Occasionally, you run a running play to, I don't know, get Kenny Gainwell's hamstrings loosened up. You're not going to learn anything from that. But with 7-on-7, you can kind of at least get a feel for the athleticism of the linebackers, the back seven, the corners, the safeties, and obviously the receivers. Other than that, I mean, I think the Eagles, and I said this yesterday on the show, you can have 10 OTA practices in 3 days of mandatory minicamp. So 13 overall practices. They use 6. That tells you all you need to know. They don't care. And I don't necessarily disagree with them. I don't know how much value there is in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I went into the last off season thinking this was a curious way to do things. I was skeptical about their approach to reducing everything as far as OTAs, not having mandatory minicamp. Them and Cincinnati were the only teams last year that did not have mandatory minicamps. Where did both of those teams end up?
Yeah,
in the Final Four. So I mean, that convinced me. And the Eagles had a quarterback who had 1 year of experience, and you're thinking, you're thinking he needs as many reps as he can get.
Yeah.
And what does he do? He has a biggest turnaround in recent history, and is a runner-up for the MVP. So, I'm convinced that you just get everybody healthy, do as much classroom work as possible during the off season, and you'll be fine.
All right, Damo, going to ask you to go to your Eagle crystal ball a little bit here. I asked a similar question to Ed Kratz. I'll ask it to you differently. Last year, the way the Eagles, with Shane Steichen in place as their offensive coordinator, but still it being Nick Sirianni's offense, Brian Johnson taking over, we expect the offense to be similar. Much like we expect the defense to be similar. How will a tweak work between the side defense and again in defense? How much is it going to change moving from Shane Steichen to Brian Johnson? If it's similar, if it's a lot alike last year's offense, who from this year's group is going to be Miles Sanders at the running back position? Or is there even going to be a Miles Sanders? Are we going to see a more equal spread between the running backs? Because Miles got 70% of the carries and everybody else split up to 30%. How do you think the running back position will play out over the year with the new offensive coordinator? Will there be any change at all?
Well, I thought the trade for DeAndre Swift was – I don't know what Detroit was thinking. I don't know why you would get rid of this guy. You look at his numbers, and it's not necessarily only because he can run the ball. In fact, it's more because he can catch the ball. Late last year, you saw a change in the Eagles' offense where Jalen seemed to be more comfortable getting the ball to Gainwell in the playoffs in the passing game. That was something he didn't seem to want to do in the past. Now, a lot of more checkdowns late in the season. Now he's got Gainwell and he's got Swift, and I think you're going to see both of them be big parts of the passing game this year, as well as the running game. But more the passing game. I mean, Swift's a guy that's averaging, like, I want to say for his career, 7.7, 8 yards a catch. I mean, that's for a running back, that's pretty damn impressive. And Gainwell's not far behind. I mean, Gainwell, you can line up anywhere in that formation. So I think that's what's going to be different about this offense this year. I think the running backs are going to be more of a factor in the passing game. Run game, they're going to split everything like they did last year. There's not going to be a workhorse. We're going to see Swift. We're going to see Gainwell. We're going to see Scott. And we're going to see Penny if he can stay healthy. I mean, he's a guy that could be a major factor in the run game if he can stay healthy, but that's a big if.
Yeah, that's a big if. I'm not buying that, Domo, just because I don't think that's the way Jalen plays. He does not dump the ball off to running backs. Like, that's, the tradition when we think of traditional pocket quarterbacks. One progression, two progression. Sometimes you get to three, but more often than not in the modern game, you go to your outlet receiver. Jalen doesn't do that, and it's been good for the Eagles. I mean, instead of dumping it off to DeAndre Swift and getting that 8 yards, he's getting 13 yards, gashing the defense, making a big play. I think maybe as he starts to age a little bit, and maybe 3 or 4 years down the road, I think maybe that comes into play more. But boy, I think he's going to be Jalen Hurts this year, and I don't think he's dumping the ball off the running back. If Kenny Gainwell was out with the Chargers, I think he'd already have 60, 70 catches a season. I think he's a great receiving back, but we just don't know it because we don't see it because the Eagles don't dump the ball off to their backs. I don't think that changes that much this year. You think the Eagles are going to hammer him and say, hey, health this, help that, try to take less hits? Because that to me is a fine line.
Well, I don't think I'm not suggesting that Swift and Gainwell are going to be his first look, but I mean, teams around the league on their schedule, particularly the teams in the NFC East, are watching a lot of tape of them this offseason, obviously. They're trying to figure out ways to shut down A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. So, I mean, you loosen things up offensively by suddenly, making your running backs a threat that you're not going to be reluctant to throw to. Then suddenly they've got to kind of can everything they thought they could do during the offseason. And, I mean, that's why I think they're going to use their running backs more. And I think, he's gotten smarter and he's not going to, he wants to play as long as he can. He knows they need him healthy. I mean, if you can dump the ball off to one of those guys rather than take a hit, why wouldn't you do it?
I give you one reason. Nick Sirianni said it during this offseason. If they're going to pay him all that money, they're not going to ask him to do less. If anything, they're going to try and hold the line at what they did last year. And he's pretty damn effective running the football for first downs, for yards, and for touchdowns. So over time, it has to happen because you just get older and slightly slower. But I don't know that it's going to be year one. I think they're going to try and do things very similar to what they did last year. We're going to have to see it play itself out. All right, Damo, I asked this to Johnny Mac. He gave me a number the other day. I need the number from you. Percentage chance DeAndre Hopkins signs with the Philadelphia Eagles. What percentage number are you putting on it?
0.
John went 2, I went 3. So, hey, I'm high man on the totem pole. I'm the optimist out of the three of us.
Yeah. My 2% is tied to A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith getting hurt at OTAs. That's where I put 2% in there. But they don't do anything. So it's pretty low. What do you think? I'm obviously beyond the big name trap. And, Joe Banner uses that term all the time over at the 33rd team. I think it's a good description. Fans like big names. There's only one football. Why can't people get that around their head? You just talked about A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Now you have backs that can catch the football. Why is a 5-time All-Pro he's used to catching 100 times when he's healthy? He's going to be happy with Quez Watkins level traffic? Can't people see the warning signs? They're flashing like this, Dama.
Yeah.
Why would you want to invite that?
Because that's the way people think. I mean, that's the way fans think.
Fantasy
Just
football.
load up with every possible big name you can get, and nobody will beat you. They don't understand. You got to keep this guy happy if you signed him. I mean, where are you going to find the targets for him? Like you just had mentioned, all the people the Jalen. I mean, we were worried last year if he'd find enough targets for Brown.
Still worried, by the way. Still worried because you got to keep AJ, Devontae, and Dallas happy. And part of it was Dallas got hurt for 5 games. Even then, we were rightfully worried. Yeah.
And here's another question. I'm not sure. I mean, if you look, I think DeAndre Hopkins is starting to go down that descending arc in his career. I mean, I don't think he's going to ever be as good as he's been. So you're not getting a guy who's going to be better, this year and next year. What is he? 30 years old.
30.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great player. But and then you got a quarterback who, for 2 years that, they managed. I mean, Howie and Jalen's agent did a marvelous job in negotiating his huge contract, where for 2 years there's minimal cap problems, but then then there is. And so, how do you bring this guy aboard unless you're, trying to figure out a way to just keep him for 1 year? And that makes no sense. So, I don't see it. I don't think Howie's intrigued by it.
But he's a big name, so people want to talk about it. So that's why I wanted to give you a chance to put a 0 on the board rather than a McMullen 2 or a McDonald 3. Yeah, we're being realistic like this, or at least we're trying. All right, here's kind of a tough question to answer. It's all projection. The Eagles had a practice yesterday. Then they had an off day. Hey, which allowed Jason Kelsey to go to a soccer game and chug a beer that went viral. So, I love Jason in the way that he's out there for everybody. But we're all looking at this as possibly Kelsey's last year. Some people have been doing it rightfully so for 5 years because he's at least left the door open to I could walk away. And he keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. And the Eagles and all their fans should be thankful for that. But now we're another year down the road. And he had another phenomenal year. And they're going to have the season that they're going to have. Is it a fair question to ask during the season for a guy like Johnny Mack or you if you're going in to specifically cover the team? Is it an unwritten rule that you stay away from it? Will he bring it up, do you think? How do you think Jason Kelsey's season plays through the media and a look toward the future this year?
I mean, at some point here early on, he's going to be asked if this is his last year. He'll say, like every other year, he's going to play it by ear. He'll wait till the end of the season and see how he feels. I mean, that's the answer he gives every year. I'm shocked. I mean, but yet this is a guy that's coming off what might have been the best season of his career at the age of 35, right? 35. Yeah. So, I don't put any, I mean, I know how hard it is for these guys to walk away and especially walk away when you're playing at the top of your game, I mean, there's no way of telling what's going to happen. So he'll be asked once, Jody. And that'll pretty much be it, unless he starts getting hurt or playing poorly. Then there'll be speculation. But if he plays like he does last year, it won't come up again. It'll come up once, and then we'll wait till the end of the season and ask him again.
Yeah, and it's been that way. Lane kind of let the cat out of the bag last season, Damo, that this was – Jason had told some players he's close to on the team that was probably going to be it for him. And he changed his mind anyway. So it doesn't matter. I mean, he can change his mind. And he's been pretty consistent. He said he's gotten some good advice and Jeff Stoutland has told him, there's going to be a day you wake up and you don't want to play anymore. And he told Stout that I don't think that's ever going to happen because he loves playing the game so much. And Stout said, no, it's going to happen. And it happens to everybody because he wants to play at a high level, number one, and he can't keep playing like an all-pro at 35, although he did, 36, 37, 30. At some point, it's going to come. I do think this is it from the perspective of he's having so much fun doing that podcast with Travis and doing everything else he's doing, and the Eagles give him all this deference. Like, he doesn't practice. He's talking about he's the only guy who loves Thursday night football because he doesn't have to practice. They give him all these maintenance days. And he said in the past that if Doug was still here, he'd probably be retired because even though it's not the old days, Doug's practice schedule was a lot more difficult than this one. So you have all these perfect pieces that have kept Jason Kelce going and going and going. But it is interesting. And Cam Jurgens, and I bring up all of that to bring up this to you. I think we're all pretty much assuming Cam Jurgens is going to be the right guard, unless he has a really poor training camp, and I don't expect that. Mm-hmm. But my question to you is, should they think that way? Because ultimately he's going to be the center. And I know we've said that in the past. We've said it with Isaac. We said it with Landon Dickerson. And maybe he turns in to be a Pro Bowl right guard and they change their mind again. But he's undersized for the position. He's got that natural athleticism they now like because they've seen it with Kelce for so long. They drafted Tyler Steen, who's got the Brandon Brooks body type. They want that big player at guard to sort of – part of the reasons they like big players at guard is to protect Kelce. And, now you have Jurgens protecting Kelce, which is not the same, and you want to have Tyler Steen protecting Jurgens. So if I'm making any sense to you, and I'm probably not, why mess with it? Just who cares? Let Cam Jurgens sit behind Jason Kelce and try to get Tyler Steen or Jack Driscoll up to speed at right guard.
Well, I mean, you had mentioned Jeff Stoutland. I mean, he's ultimately going to be the one that tells them what's the best way to handle this. My guess is Stout feels the guy could start 17 games this year at right guard and still be able to be prepped occasionally enough at center so that if Jason leaves after this year, Cam can step in and it wouldn't be a complete learning experience. There's also the fact with Steen. I mean, one of the things that appeals to me about Steen is not only that he can play guard, obviously, like right away, but right now you'd also, I mean, this is a guy that played tackle at Alabama. It's a hell of a swing weapon to have as a backup in case Lane misses a couple of games, in case Jordan Mailata strains a calf for a couple of games. So, I don't know. I don't think there's a bad solution to this. I'm fine with them. I think Cam Jurgens will be just fine if he plays right guard because Stout will know. Whatever. I mean, I'm a believer. I mean, Jeff Stoutland convinced me a long time ago that he's the best. Yeah. Next to Howard Mudd, the best offensive line coach that maybe ever lived. So whatever he decides, I think will probably he'll know whether Jurgens is ready, whether he can hold up at right guard, whether having two undersized guys playing next to each other is the right way to go or not.
All right, let me follow up John's question, and then we'll let you run, Donald. Thank you, as always, for jumping in with us. You have faith in Stout. I have faith that everybody believes Stout's as good as he is. One of my, after the fact, 2020 hindsight, knocks against last year's Eagles team, which isn't easy since they were this close to winning a championship, was, I'm pointing the finger at a guy who's out of town, love kicking on dirt on somebody's grave when they've already left, is Nick Rollis. That he couldn't get Nakobe Dean more reps at linebacker last year. I know Kaiser White was good. I know Edwards was good. I know they never got hurt. But I think part of just running an organization is looking 90% of today, but 10% of tomorrow and down the road. I think the Eagles last year at linebacker looked 100% for today and 0 for tomorrow. And that's a little risky when you got two guys who are going to be free agents, TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. And now we have these questions about the Eagles at linebacker. I think they could have handled it better. That sort of thinking. Jeff Stoutland, how much is he looking purely at today, the upcoming 2023 season, and how much should he be looking at? If you want to tell me it's 100-0, Jody, you got to be in the moment. This is the chips all into the middle of the table year. I'll accept that. I might disagree with it, but I'll accept it. How do they make that decision? Do they worry about what happens in 2024 at all with a decision they make here in 2023?
Well, if I'm the offensive line coach, I'm just looking at today. I mean, it's Howie Roseman's job to look at the big picture. Now they talk.
Yeah, but is Howie Roseman going to walk into Jeff Stoutland's office and go, "Hey, you're not looking at 2024 enough"?
I hope not. And that's all.
No, but there's conversations about what he's picking Stoutland's brain about, how much having Juergens at right guard this year impacts his readiness to be the starting center next year if Jason leaves. I don't know exactly what happened with Nakobe Dean, other than, the two guys they had starting at linebacker last year played really well. So there was no need to force Nakobe Dean in there. I think he probably had more special team snaps than anybody on the team. So, we can't discount that. That's an important part of of a football team, although, we often didn't think they played very well last year. But, I don't think playing as few snaps as Dean played last year is going to impact him this year. In fact, like I said earlier, I think it might be an advantage because he's going to be fresh. He's not going to be banged up. And he'll be, mentally, Nakobe Dean's one of the smartest guys on their team right now. So I don't think it's going to be a problem for him stepping in and playing. And I think the same is the case with how you approach that offensive line. You got to look at today. You worry about tomorrow, because you don't know who's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
No.
I agree with Tomo. That's Howie's job. Coaches, go win. Go win on Sunday. Go win today. Get 1% better. That's what the coaches are.
I'm guessing Howie's not going to be going in and even hinting to Stout what to do with the offensive line. Oh, he'll have a sit down with Nick. I think he'll go eyeball to eyeball with Nick. Yeah, I don't think he'll be doing that with Stoutland. So it does bother me a little bit. Damo, always a pleasure, brother. Appreciate it whenever you come on. We hadn't gotten you on in over a month. Glad you came on with us. We will be reaching back ASAP to get you on again to see what fine Tommy Bahama shirt you have on. Thanks
for having me, guys. Take care.
Thanks,
Tom. Paul Domowitch here on Birds.
By the way, breaking news before I know we got to go. Brett Kern announced his retirement.
Oh, no. No. Say it isn't so, Johnny Mac.
Great Eagles punter. Brett Kern. I'm joking. Obviously, he was a great punter. Tennessee.
Not in
Tennessee.
green, he wasn't.
No, not in green. With Tennessee, he was a Pro Bowl punter. He announced his retirement through the Titans. Brett Kern.
He spent most of his time there, so good on him. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac, coming back. Got to put a bow on the show.
Do you stream on a Roku? Fire